Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask Adam Live. ASK is the acronym for Always Seek Knowledge. This and every other episode is, built to just do that, to get you involved, to have you question, not yourself, and not to beat yourself up, but just to be a little bit more inquisitive about life, maybe about yourself, about others, as well as the world around you. I feel like the more that you know about yourself and others and kind of how to do things, well, I feel like you're a better participant in life where you'll start to see that things are happening for you and not to you. And why? Well, simply because you're asking questions and you're asking to understand and you're asking to, know better. In this particular episode, we're going to speak about launch without burnout, build momentum without breaking yourself. Let's get on with the show. Hey, most people don't fail their launch, they survive it fairly. Late nights, overthinking, trying to do everything at once, and burnout before they show up. How many of us have done that? Now, see, the problem isn't ambition, it's uncertain execution. In my real estate career, I remember the grind. I remember the phone calls, the emails, the licking of stamps. I know I'm dating myself, but things were real. I remember the pressures that I encountered just in the supply chain world. Everything had to be done before. So the fact that we were doing it now, we were already behind. And hit a little close to home, building the Ask Adam brand. I've really seen all sides of this, pushing hard and burning out, and later learning to structure energy instead of just effort. I want to share with you in today's episode a 5-part framework to launch anything, business, offer, idea, or a project without the burnout and without losing momentum. I know you can't wait. That sounds like a too good to be true, but honestly, it's there. And I'll unpack and share with you absolutely how we're going to do that. So let's get started. Part one, why does burnout happen? See, burnout is not about working hard. It's about working without structure, working without recovery, and quite frankly, just working without clarity. Some of the common patterns of this is trying to do too much too soon. I'm guilty of that. I want it all done yesterday. I want it all done so that I can say that, first of all, I did it, which I like to pat myself on the back frequently and say it's accomplished. But I also want to do it so I can see the results. I just can't wait. I was that kid that wanted to put something together just so I could see it was together, how it worked, what it did. You can't do that. Doing too much too soon. Also, not having much of a defined finish line as far as what the end looks like. And this is a little bit of poor planning. Maybe some of the emotional pressure that's tied to the outcome, like you need this thing to succeed or else. I've worked under those pressures as well. We're thinking on the same line, as well as the pressure of just not seeing that visible progress, which, if you're like me, and I know there's a few of you out there, man, you do something, you want to see a result, you want to see something. And one of the most crucial is not having a recovery built in. Like if something doesn't operate as it's supposed to when it's put together, what's the backup plan? What's the plan B? If you're putting all of your proverbial eggs into one basket of something happening and then it falls apart, trust me, you're going to drown in devastation alone. Just the whole form of failure. So have that recovery built in. See, when activity doesn't have structure, it becomes stress. That's the simplest way to put it. So you've already experienced that, I'm sure. Now, to align with a much broader system, I've created the clarity sprint, a follow through formula, and a stress to strategy angle. Would you like to get into it? Let's start. In the 5-part launch without burnout framework, well, number one is define the minimum viable launch. Most people overbuild at this point, right? They want to get it all together. They want it to be the best when it's unveiled. Building the perfect website, having all of the aspects of a lead funnel, all the little squares in place so they line up, having all your modules put together. Yeah. What you simply need is a clear offer, a simple message, and a way to deliver it. Now, with today's technology, I got to share with you, it's gotten really easy to accomplish those three things. A clear offer. Well, if you are really passionate about what it is that you're working on, you can obviously put that together as far as what is its value. How does it help people? If you can put that together in a simple message, they call it the elevator pitch sometimes. I just think it's your share. What's your simple message? What is it that you do in the most simplest, direct terms that say, this is what I do, maybe a touch of why you do it, and the results that come from it. That's simple. I know it's hard because you really got to start crunching down the words to get it down to, like I said, as short as possible. And then also a way to deliver your message. Now, is it going to be social media? Is it going to be websites? Is it going to be billboards? How are you going to get this delivered? And you're probably even going to ask yourself, what's the simplest version of this that still works? Because again, we're evolving in time pretty quickly, which means the ideas of today might not work tomorrow. So you kind of want to dial in exactly how you want to deliver this message and understand the results that you're expecting from it. Not that they have to be perfect, but just that you're understanding what the results are. Number two, build in time blocks, not time drains. Because we all know what time drains are, don't we? That's building that perfect website. That's setting up that perfect pitch. That's dialing into what is the most effective pay forward system that your client can come through you to pay and implement that exchange of value with you. And you're going to discover that there's probably a couple different ways to do that. And you'll have to get into maybe some monetary exchange, or maybe be a subscriber to a system that allows that. You're looking at a global scale because one person's currency may not be dollars. So how does that work as far as someone globally getting on? And again, this is speaking of something you have is an online system. If not, then it may be something you're putting in the mail. Maybe you have a workbook and a work project. Even that has to get put in a box, put in the mail, and that's going to cost some money. So you want to make sure that all of this stuff is put together. But part of this development plan is you're going to work on it all day, maybe all weekend. If you're still kind of doing the 9-to-5 job, you're going to spend an entire day, an entire weekend. You're going to upset your family. You're going to frustrate yourself, and you're not really getting anywhere. I recommend 60 to 90-minute focus blocks. And what this does is it focuses that finite amount of energy that you have into that 60 to 90 minutes. And you know that's kind of a deadline, a little bit of pressure. I know we got enough of it, but puts a little pressure on you to not be distracted and to understand that your 60 to 90 minutes is the most precious amount of time that you have to focus. Again, just on the three things earlier mentioned, such as your pitch. What is it that you are describing? And then how are you going to get that ideal client to subscribe to it? So your energy is finite, use it effectively. And you'll find that when you focus on something, you actually speed it up a little bit. And you're going to also find that you're not so drawn into the details. You realize it just has to be something, it doesn't have to be perfect. I think that's the easiest way to get past the perfection curve, is to simply just focus 60 to 90 minutes on a particular thing and move on. Another 60 to 90 minutes on something else, move on. Maybe another 60 to 90 on something else and move on. Now your three things are done. You haven't wasted a day. You haven't wasted your precious weekend, and you most likely haven't upset your family by hiding in the closet and working on this big project that you have. This is part of that clarity sprint methodology. So you know that there's a finite amount of time. Now, I know you're going to say, hey, that's just, setting up the website's going to take longer. Of course it is. But what I'm sharing with you is get in, set up the basics, because you can get all hung up on just the first three pages, that they have to be absolutely perfect. And then you create the third page and you go back to the first page, realizing the third page should have said, or the first page should have said something about the third page. Just keep it simple. You're just building this foundation. You're constantly going to have the strange little nuances of oddity in your business that are going to come in to say, hey, we should probably mention this on the website for that small percentage of people. These are the weeds I'm talking about. You don't want to get into that right now. You're launching. Set up the basics, work on the rest. When you get good at this 60 to 90 minute work block, you'll find that when it comes time to dialing back and setting up those oddities, as I speak of, these strange nuances that you feel are necessary, if you do at that point still feel they're necessary, well, now you can focus that particular 60 or 90 minutes a day on that particular thing and then be done. And the next day, focus another 60 or 90 on something else. See where the clarity sprint methodology can work for you and not against you. So once you practice this, you'll find that it actually becomes a everyday event. Pardon the pun. Number 3, set a 30-day execution window. No endless timelines that go on. And I don't necessarily say that one thing has to happen before another. And then, because you're going to get hung up on that first thing before the second thing ever takes place. That's not good to do either. But let's set some pretty concrete foundations. First of all, let's set a start date. When is it that this business is going to start? Second thing is, let's set a launch date. For example, your offer goes live in 30 days. Write that on your calendar and say, this is when it goes live, and remind yourself. So while you're going through those time blocks, as mentioned, you know that in 4 weeks, 30 days, you've got a deadline. In 3 weeks, 21 days, you got a deadline. In 2 weeks, 14, 15 days, you got a deadline. That way, you know this is coming up and you can't really escape it. You're not going to push it down the calendar. Keep that deadline. That's when you're going to do something. See, part of the setting a deadline and sticking to it, well, it creates decision-making speed, because you start to realize you don't have time to mess around with something and go back to what we call overthinking, right? So focus on your deadline, meaning your start time, that you've put that proverbial line in the sand and said, this is when everything's going to begin. and focus on that. Make sure that those three foundational blocks are in place. What you do, how you do it, and how you exchange it with others. Focus on those three right now. Again, it's just the beginning. But as you're working, having those built, the rest of it will come to fruition around those three. But if you're struggling with those first three, we might have a problem with our launch date. And as I mentioned, we're coming into number 4. Install recovery as a requirement. This has to be here. Not saying it's your automatic default. It's not that safety net that you look down and say, oh, I won't get hurt. No, it's part of the plan and it's going to be there. This is where most people fail. See, recovery is not optional. It's got to be a necessity. So one of the things I want you to also time block with your sprints is time to go take a walk, to take a break. Set yourself up, pre-date. When you set up your calendar with the 30 days, I want you to already have some time blocked out for these things that I'm speaking of. A walk through your park, a walk around your neighborhood. I want you to take a break, step away from that workspace. You need to build into place today, at the beginning, some no work windows on your calendar so that when you look at the calendar and say, what am I doing today? You know, I'm not working until this hour and I have until this hour to get this task completed, and stick to it. Remember, this is kind of being with yourself. So start learning how to be honest with yourself and be true to yourself. So when these options do come up, you got to have some self-discipline to say, I've reached the end of my work session. You also have to be very disciplined with your sleeping patterns. Don't stay up all night trying to work on something thinking it's the end all be all. Again, you're already violating the time block that we spoke of earlier, 60 to 90 minutes, and be done with it. Go to the next thing. 60 to 90 minutes. Maybe you can only endure 2 of these sessions a day, and that's fine. But draw the line and be finished when you're finished. And go to sleep not worrying about what it is you have to do next. You know, 30 days in advance, you've already blocked out time. You have all the time in the world to set this up. So don't have those sleepless nights of, oh, I'm not going to get something done as you lie in bed and not get some sleep. You've blocked out time already. So enjoy your rest and be relaxed. Because at the end of this, it's the sustainable energy is going to beat your temporary intensity. Let me repeat that. Sustainable energy beats the temporary intensity. See, I can't even say it because I just don't like the intensity. I've learned, which is why I'm sharing with you, focusing on getting it built just so you can see it done is not an effective way to do it. Put it together, be happy with what it does, and move to the next step. You know, you're kind of building something big, and you can't build it all in one day, in 1 hour, or in 1 week. It's going to take these series of steps. You might have tuned into one of the other podcasts that I spoke of, which was regarding habits and how it's the small things that we do in our life that create the big changes. This is similar to that. These 60 to 90 minute segments that you're blocking out will be a month's worth of creativity once you get through it. But you've got to stay with the schedule. Number 5, measure output, not perfection. See, you want to keep track of, whether it's on a note paper, a spreadsheet, the actions taken. One of the things I like to do in my building process is I can click on the box, put in the date, I put what it is that I did, and maybe a result or a note, If I set up a website, if I set up a page, if I set something up, if I set up a thinking tree, whatever it was that was developed in that 60 to 90-minute range, I will go over to a spreadsheet. You could do it on Notepad or a notebook or something that keeps it together, but take a notation of the actions taken and what it was that you did. Maybe a notation about messages that were sent, maybe a little note of the content that was created. Remember, you're not measuring likes, immediate sales, or even the external validation of somebody outside. You've probably heard this before, but it's what you do in private is what you will eventually get praised for in public. So you're not really looking for that applause yet. You're just keeping track of what it is that you're doing. And I'm sharing this with you because it's going to be important. A little bit down the line, when you get frustrated and feel like you haven't done anything, especially when you get close to that launch date, that the mark you put on the calendar that says, going to do it by this. Well, being able to go back to that list and see everything that you've accomplished maybe in the first 15 days is going to give you some confidence to follow through in the next 15 days, knowing that you've got so much done already. And you're halfway there, by the way. So you want to track things like what you've done, maybe who you've communicated that was strategic. Like maybe you've partnered with somebody, maybe you attended a networking event. Again, content created, website. Was it a workbook? Was it a work page? Was it a PowerPoint presentation? What was it that you did? Just make a notation, put the date, put what it was, maybe even create a category. And again, don't spend too much time on this either, but maybe if there's general categories like building the business, working on content, connecting with others, because you're going to do some of that while you're building this as well. And again, time focused blocks. When you start focusing blocks of your day, then there's a certain time of your day that you have available to do this. And again, there's also blocked out time, as mentioned, that you're going to rest and relax. You're going to take a break from things. That's going to fill up your day pretty quick. When you're only talking 8 to 12 hours in a 24-hour day, and if you have other obligations like family and a mild social life, I didn't say a big social life, but maybe there's a group of gentlemen or ladies that you're hanging out with that are kind of your mentor group, I have a time block with my mentors. We meet once a week and we check in on each other. That's on the calendar. There's no negotiation. It's not going to interrupt my 60 to 90-minute time block of doing something else, but I certainly have learned how to work around it to ensure that I don't miss that week. I'm not going to sacrifice that week of connection with my mentors just because I have something that absolutely needs to get done. I've had several other hours out of the day and of the week to be able to focus on that. This is the time to do it. And I will tell you, quite frankly, my mentor group is a blast. We learn about each other. We confide in each other. If there's something I'm struggling with, they're helping me. If there's something they're struggling with, I'm helping them. It's probably the greatest definition of free trade there ever could be. And we are all leveling up to our own success, going on our own path. But we have that guidance from each other. Or, we're even honest to say, hey, I'm not there yet, so I don't know what to tell you, but keep going. Or confide with someone else. Or have you shared this with this person? Or what if you did this, to find that next person that could probably help you a little bit more. Even that little nugget of information gives you something to do. And quite frankly, not that I've ever been stumped. Trust me, I can fill that 60 to 90-minute window with almost anything. I've always got something going on. But sometimes in my confiding with my mentors, they've redirected me to understand a little bit more of what's important, that those 60 to 90-minute blocks stay in focus with truly what I'm doing. Sometimes I forget what it is that I'm doing. I know it's I know it's hard to imagine, but you can forget what you're doing. You can get distracted. So having a mentor group like that to help keep you on the rails. So we're building consistency. Now let's look at part 3, which is the energy equation. Here's the simple model. Energy equals output quality. If you wake up having a good day, spend your time block doing something really productive, pat yourself on the back, and you're feeling great, hey, we'll chalk that up to a good day. But what if you've had a couple of those really good days and you've put 150% towards your project? And then that fourth day comes along and man, you're just spent. You're not feeling it. Well, that's going to affect the quality output. And that's going to have a major drop in your energy. And I want to caution to you that you'll start to find decisions worsen. The messaging weakens. And quite frankly, your confidence is going to drop. That's why the energy is important. Time blocking is important. Getting rest, the nutrition. You've listened to other podcasts that I've mentioned about eating right and being hydrated and being nourished. I mean, you're not going to have a big Coca-Cola and some chips and dip and then sit down and be productive. You're going to go to sleep right there at your productive desk. And by the way, you're going to fill up that 60 to 90-minute time block sleeping. Well, you've lost opportunity because remember, you've already filled out your day with other obligations. So come to the workbench with as much energy as possible. Behavior flows from an internal state, as well as repeated activities and patterns. And so you'll find that probably about 10, 12 days into this, that you don't even think about going to the workbench to work on your stuff. It's just there. It's your momentum. It's your motion. But if, like I said, if you stray from poor eating habits, your state can become chaotic and your results will become inconsistent. And if you start fluctuating on your 60 to 90 minutes because you've, well, burned out in so many different ways that you've showed up to the working table, workbench, if you will, and failed to perform a couple days in a row, well, guess what? That's going to affect your launch date. That's going to affect some of these other time blocks. And I'm going to tell you up front, you're not going to take away that downtime with some work time thinking you're going to play catch up. Because guess what that's going to do? Going to adjust your state. You're going to lose that opportunity to relax. You're going to lose that opportunity to get out and provoke thought. Like I suggested, walk in the park. I have a park next to me where I live. I get out and walk the park all the time. I find that walking not only gets me away from the workbench, but it gets me thinking about activity at the workbench. So when I get back to it, I have a fresh perspective. I have a different idea. I've toyed around with this thing in my mind. I've recited it a couple of times, and now I'm going to sit down at the work table and punch it out. And almost verbatim, what I rehearsed in my head, I will type. And it just works that way. So don't take that time away from you because not only is that re-energizing, but it's also creative. So you've got to protect that state. You also have to control the activity that you're doing in that state as well as surrounding that state so that you can direct the energy exactly where you need it. That is going to give you exactly the results, if not better. And when you get really good at this with self discipline, like I said, you can apply this to anything. And once you get this into a pattern, into that habitual behavior, and the neurons start wiring and firing together, well, now you've got something unstoppable. So when you ask, and you've heard many people say they own several businesses, well, how do you think they didn't work very hard at it? They figured out the formula, which is what we're talking about here today. Today is once you get this formula dialed into you and what works best with you, as far as like, you get up first thing in the morning and work, you get up and do a little exercise and physically prime yourself to then go to the thought process of it being at your workstation, whatever it is that your schedule that you've set up, because it will work different with everyone. But when you follow these same common themes, I can guarantee you this and every other business you start will remain exactly along the path that you would like it to be going on, because it's going to already be dialed in for success. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, but common launch mistakes is, like I said, wait until everything's perfect. It's not going to be. Trying to do everything alone. I know the world doesn't revolve around you. I mean, we all want it to, but it doesn't. You need help, mentors, assistants, people doing certain things that, well, be honest with yourself, you have no business doing. If you're not good at it, somebody else can do it. Remember, you only have 60 to 90-minute time blocks. You really want to spend that going through a learning curve? No. So let somebody who's already specialized in learning that particular task or talent, and let them manage it. They'll do it in half the time for far less the cost that it will cost you. And I know when they say there's a price tag on what they're going to do, trust me, when you put that next to what it cost you in time and energy and focus on what truly matters, which is the building of this business called yours, you'll find that it's a pretty deep discount that they're offering you, that they can do it. And you'll get results in time, not in your time, in their time, because they're good at it. Something else, another mistake, is comparing yourself to others. Don't think that you have to be at the same level as someone either in your business or parallel for you to be calling yourself a success. It's not true. Your success is based on what it is that you're doing. So work on your success. Don't worry about others. Another thing, you're ignoring your energy levels. That goes right back to not showing up at your workstation, powered up, ready to motivate. You got to really be dialed into this to know, hey, it's not a good energy day. I need to do something to stimulate because I got some bench time, work bench time on my calendar. And I need to be ready for that. And I can't be drowsy. So pay attention to your energy levels, and equally when it comes to resting as well. Starting to feel overwhelmed, push through your 60 to 90-minute time block. And if the next thing is to walk or relax or do that stress down process, well, it may just be relaxing, not necessarily the physical activity of walking in the park. If you're already drained, you need to realize that this is recovery time. So understand your energy levels. And if you don't have energy to do that, don't exhaust yourself by thinking, I got to go walk in the park to decompress, because now you're going to be twice as tired to be able to manage the next day. And remember, you already have a schedule set up, so you don't have time to miss a minute. This is probably the top, but I kind of throw it in as last, and that's quitting after initial resistance. You're going to get some level of resistance. Every business, every launch, every startup, Anyone has had some level of resistance. Either it's just not going the way you planned, it's just not coming together as it should. Whatever it is, you got to overlook that. You got to understand that it's not the foundation of your business. It's merely a peripheral thing. It's sort of like you're building this block wall. Just because the wind's blowing doesn't disrupt the building of your wall. Yeah, it's trying to resist you building it, and it's going to have create some friction towards the wall that you're building it. But you can't let the wind bother you with what you're doing. It's just there and it's happening. And structurally, you've probably designed that wall to most likely withstand the wind. So you just like your business, you're building this thing to withstand the critics, the 1 stars, the 2 stars, the somebody didn't get something specifically the way they wanted it, and you were probably pretty honest with them, and they just didn't like it, and so they give you a bad review. It happens to the best of us. But if you're focusing your entire business built on that one review, well, maybe that's something you need to focus on while you're decompressing from your workbench, is that remind yourself you are strong. Remind yourself why you're doing something. Remember, Simon Sinek said, know your why. I'm a firm believer in what he shares is once you know your why, you're pretty unstoppable. And if somebody's going to give you some resistance, whether it be a critic or whether somebody just kind of read what you did, your contract a little wrong, and it kind of went sideways, and all of a sudden what they thought you were going to give them and what you perceived because they read the contract, whatever it is, whatever conflict it is, just kind of brush it off your shoulder. If you can smooth it out, make that person happy, so be it. If you can't, let it go. Stay clear. Stay clearly about your why, because those small little speed bumps, they're going to be in the rearview mirror. See, burnout doesn't come from the work. It comes from how you approach the work. So approach it knowing your why and approach it with focus. For instance, I remember putting together the first offer for services. And that was building a website, kind of overthinking my brand. And I hesitated a little bit. This was actually with real estate, was where the podcast initially came from. And it was sharing with people about real estate, about transactions, and not really divulging the information of clients and customers, but just sharing the examples of things that kind of happen, a little inside baseball, if you will, so that somebody kind of knew what to expect, would kind of know that what their experience was, I wouldn't say normal, but it wasn't as strange as you thought. And many of these examples were shared in those shows. But I remember just being frustrated that I don't think anybody's watching. I don't think anybody's paying attention. I don't think this is important to people. It happened once. Does it happen to 100 people? Absolutely. In fact, here's a great, because it's history and it's gone, but I remember one of the episodes was discussing commission, which was sort of a hand slap. We don't talk about commission, when that was probably our biggest negotiating tool as independent agents to work with. And the powers that be said that you couldn't talk about that. And I kind of argued with it in one of my episodes that shouldn't be someone else's call. That's my call. Now, if I'm working for someone and that someone says, here's our office standards, or here's the brand standards that we want to follow by, but even according to the trade commission, that was illegal, that they couldn't set that in place. So there's kind of a whole round robin. And I remember then just talking about it and sharing with others here was the reality of what this situation is. And so that all parties knew what to expect. So if they were in that conversation, well, it wasn't strange to them. And it's just kind of funny that now we've come around full circle where there was actually a lawsuit about that big thing that I did a whole episode on. Gosh, when was that? 2010, 2012. Anyway, don't feel like your information isn't relevant. It is. If it's an experience you've had or something you feel like others would or need to have or appreciate, it's relevant. So the new thing I set up was defining the offer, writing out a simple message, and of course, reaching out to about 10 people. I've delivered it live several times, and I've had some people interested. By doing this consistently, I am more than certain that 30 days after your launch, you're going to have two things. You're going to have clients, raving fans, and you're going to have clarity because you will know not only what you built is working, you will know what needs added to, not making perfect, but just added to, and maybe some things that, well, yeah, you spent a little bit of time on, but you could certainly dial it back and not maybe adjust it in the website, put it on the last page versus the front page because you realize, nobody's talking about it. But those are just subtle changes that you're starting to make, not drastic. You're not revamping the website. You might just change something or reword something, maybe add some clarity. And by the way, that's going to make that 60 to 90-minute session probably closer to 45 to 50 minutes. And you're going to start finding that you're shaving that work time down and focusing more on filling your calendar with the other opportunities, such as connecting and networking with your clients and customers. So I know I've been kind of long-winded on this. I hope you found a lot of information. You don't need to sacrifice yourself to build something meaningful. You build it with structure, you build it with clarity, and most importantly, build it so you can sustain it. This has been another tremendous episode of Ask Adam Live. Be sure to download the worksheet using the hashtag AskAdamLive. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Now let's all go out and make it a great day.